Have you ever experienced a coincidence so precise, so perfectly timed that it seemed impossible to be random? Perhaps you were thinking about someone you haven't seen in years, only to receive a call from them minutes later. Or maybe you kept encountering the same unusual symbol repeatedly during a critical decision-making period in your life. These aren't just random statistical anomalies. According to Carl Jung, these meaningful coincidences, what he called synchronicities, are actually glimpses into a deeper order of reality that connects our inner psychological world with external events. In this video, I'll show you why these experiences are far more significant than mere coincidence, how to recognize authentic synchronicities in your life, and most importantly, how to work with them as powerful guidance for your personal evolution. If you've ever sensed that the universe might be trying to communicate with you through seemingly random events, this exploration of Jung's revolutionary concept could transform how you understand reality itself. Carl Jung introduced the concept of synchronicity in the 1920s, but fully developed it in his 1952 essay, Synchronicity and a Causal Connecting Principle, written in collaboration with physicist Wolfgang Pauli. This wasn't just a psychological theory. It was a radical challenge to the mechanistic worldview that had dominated Western thinking since the Enlightenment. In its simplest form, synchronicity refers to meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by conventional causality, events that are connected not by cause and effect, but by meaning and significance. Jung observed these patterns both in his own life and in the experiences of his patients. He noticed that during periods of psychological transformation, people often reported strange coincidences that seemed to reflect or amplify their inner psychological state. This concept remains profoundly relevant today. In our hyper-rational, technology-driven world, we've largely lost touch with this more intuitive way of perceiving connections. Yet many people continue to experience synchronicities that defy logical explanation, often during pivotal moments in their lives. Throughout this video, we'll explore the psychological mechanics behind synchronicity, examine compelling examples, and discover how to cultivate greater awareness of these meaningful patterns in your own life. We'll also address common misconceptions and distinguish authentic synchronicities from confirmation bias or selective attention. Before we dive deeper, I want to acknowledge that this territory can feel challenging if you've been conditioned to believe that only material causality is real. The concept of synchronicity invites us to expand our understanding of how the universe operates, to consider that meaning itself might be a fundamental organizing principle alongside causality. To truly understand synchronicity, we need to explore several key aspects of Jung's theoretical framework. Synchronicities often involve archetypal themes emerging simultaneously in both psyche and world. For example, when working through mother issues in therapy, a client might suddenly encounter unusual maternal symbols or coincidences in their external environment. Jung suggested that synchronicities point to an underlying unity of psyche and matter, what he called the unus mundus, or one world. In this view, mind and matter aren't fundamentally separate, but are different expressions of a deeper unified reality. This concept parallels developments in quantum physics that were emerging during Jung's lifetime. His collaboration with physicist Wolfgang Pauli explored these connections, suggesting that the observer and the observed might be more interconnected than classical science had assumed. Perhaps most challenging to our conventional thinking is Jung's proposal that synchronicities represent a causal connecting principle. Unlike the familiar cause and effect relationships that govern physical events, synchronicities are connected by meaning, rather than causality. This doesn't mean abandoning causality where it applies. Physical processes still follow causal laws. Rather, Jung suggested that causality and meaning represent complementary ways of understanding connections in our experience. Crucial to understanding synchronicity is recognizing that these experiences aren't purely objective or subjective. They exist at the intersection of inner and outer reality. The psyche plays an active role in both perceiving and potentially influencing synchronistic events. Jung observed that synchronicities often cluster around emotionally charged situations, major life transitions, or periods of psychological transformation. They seem to appear when the psyche is engaged with significant archetypal material, or when we're approaching important realizations. Not every coincidence qualifies as synchronicity. Authentic synchronistic experiences typically share these characteristics. Archetypal foundation. Connection to deeper universal patterns. Synchronicity is not the same as synchrony, things happening at the same time. It's not merely statistical coincidence or probability. It's not supernatural intervention or divine messaging, though some may interpret it this way. It's not a form of ESP or psychic ability. It's not confirmation bias or selective attention, though these can mimic synchronicity. Now that we've established the theoretical foundation, let's explore how you can work with synchronicities in your own life. This isn't about forcing meaningful coincidences to happen, but rather developing the receptivity and awareness to recognize and engage with them when they occur. The first step is developing what we might call synchronistic awareness, a state of attentive receptivity to meaningful patterns. Here are specific practices to help you cultivate this awareness. Practice active observation. Pay attention to unusual coincidences without immediately dismissing them. Notice patterns, recurring symbols, or unexpected connections between your thoughts and external events. 2. Keep a synchronicity journal. Document coincidences that feel meaningful. Include your inner state, the external event, and why the connection feels significant. Over time, patterns may emerge that reveal deeper themes in your life. 3. Develop symbolic literacy. Familiarize yourself with archetypal symbols and patterns, read mythology, study dream symbolism, or explore Jungian texts. This symbolic vocabulary helps you recognize meaningful patterns more readily. 4. Cultivate liminal states. Synchronicities often appear during transitional or threshold states when the ego is less dominant. Practices like meditation, active imagination, or time in nature can help access these receptive states. 5. Engage with dreams. Pay attention to connections between dream content and waking events. Dreams often anticipate or parallel synchronistic experiences in waking life. Take a moment now to reflect on any potential synchronicities you've experienced recently. Were there connections between your inner thoughts and external events that seemed meaningful beyond mere coincidence? Developing discernment is crucial when working with synchronicities. Here's a practical framework for distinguishing authentic synchronistic experiences from projection or wishful thinking. First, archetypal resonance. Does the experience connect to universal human themes or archetypal patterns? Authentic synchronicities often have this deeper resonance. 4. Transformative potential. Does the experience offer insight, guidance, or potential for psychological growth? Meaningful synchronicities typically point toward integration or development. 5. Confirmation. Bias. Check. Am I simply noticing what confirms my existing beliefs while ignoring contradictory information? Honest self-reflection helps distinguish projection from authentic synchronicity. When you experience what appears to be a meaningful synchronicity, here's a step-by-step process for engaging with it productively. What might it represent archetypally? 3. Dialogue with the experience. Ask questions like, if this synchronicity were trying to communicate something, what might it be? Or, how does this experience relate to my current life situation? Does it suggest a new perspective, decision, or direction? Several common obstacles can block our ability to recognize and work with synchronicities. Fear of uncertainty. Discomfort with ambiguity or phenomena that can't be fully controlled or explained. 4. Ego inflation. The danger of seeing oneself as specially chosen or at the center of cosmic significance. 5. Spiritual bypassing. Using synchronistic experiences to avoid dealing with practical realities or psychological work. Awareness of these obstacles is the first step toward overcoming them. The goal is neither blind belief nor rigid skepticism, but rather a balanced approach that remains open to meaningful patterns while maintaining critical thinking. Let me share a few examples of how people have experienced profound transformation through synchronistic events. After noticing this pattern, she realized the butterfly, a symbol of transformation, was reflecting her own metamorphosis. This recognition gave her the courage to make the transition to more meaningful work. Case 2. Grief and healing. Following the death of his father, a man repeatedly encountered his father's favorite bird in unusual circumstances, often when thinking about unresolved aspects of their relationship. These encounters provided comfort, but also prompted him to work through his complex feelings about his father, leading to emotional healing. Case 3. Relationship insight. A couple experiencing relationship difficulties kept encountering the number 8, representing infinity, in various contexts when together. This prompted them to explore the cyclical patterns in their relationship, ultimately helping them break destructive cycles and establish healthier dynamics. These examples illustrate how synchronicities can serve as catalysts for psychological growth when approached with openness and discernment. Now let's explore how the concept of synchronicity extends beyond personal psychology to influence our relationships, creative endeavors, and even our understanding of reality itself. Some of the most powerful synchronistic experiences occur in the context of human relationships. Jung observed that significant relationships, particularly those with deep psychological impact, often begin with or involve striking synchronicities. This is especially evident in what Jung called archetypal relationships, connections that activate profound unconscious patterns. The initial meeting of future partners, mentors, or even adversaries who trigger important growth may be marked by meaningful coincidences that hint at the significance of the connection. From a Jungian perspective, these synchronicities aren't causing the relationship, but rather reflecting the activation of shared archetypal patterns. They serve as markers of psychological significance, signs that something important is happening at the unconscious level. Practical application. Pay attention to meaningful coincidences surrounding significant relationships in your life. These patterns may reveal the deeper psychological purpose or learning opportunity within the connection. Many artists, writers, and scientists report that their creative breakthroughs involve synchronistic experiences. Ideas seem to arrive from nowhere just when needed, or external events mysteriously align to provide exactly the inspiration or information required. From a Jungian perspective, creative work often involves accessing the collective unconscious, the same source from which synchronicities emerge. The creative process can be understood as a dialogue between conscious intention and unconscious material, with synchronicities serving as bridges between these realms. Practical application. During creative blocks, remain attentive to seemingly random events or impressions. These may contain the symbolic key needed to move forward. Many creative people keep idea journals that include synchronistic experiences alongside more conventional inspiration. While synchronicity challenges the mechanistic worldview of classical science, it resonates with certain developments in contemporary physics, particularly quantum mechanics and complexity theory. Quantum entanglement, for instance, demonstrates that particles once connected remain correlated regardless of distance, exhibiting what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. While not identical to synchronicity, such phenomena suggest that reality may be more interconnected than classical models assumed. Similarly, complexity theory explores how order can emerge spontaneously from apparent chaos, a process that parallels how meaningful patterns, synchronicities, emerge from seemingly random events. Perspective shift. Rather than seeing synchronicity as opposed to science, we might view it as pointing toward a more comprehensive understanding of reality that integrates both causal and acausal connecting principles. Different cultures have long recognized phenomena similar to what Jung called synchronicity. Various spiritual traditions interpret meaningful coincidences as divine guidance or evidence of an intelligent universe. While Jung's formulation of synchronicity was psychological rather than religious, he acknowledged that these experiences often carry spiritual significance for those who experience them. Integrative approach. You can engage with the psychological reality of synchronicity regardless of your metaphysical beliefs. Whether you interpret these experiences through a spiritual framework or a psychological one, their potential for meaningful insight remains. For those who wish to deepen their engagement with synchronicity, consider these more advanced approaches. Amplification through cultural parallels. When a symbol appears synchronistically, explore its manifestations across different cultures and traditions to enrich your understanding of its potential significance. 3. Synchronicity. Clusters. Pay special attention when multiple synchronicities cluster around a particular theme or decision. These clusters often signal especially significant psychological material or life transitions. 4. Collective synchronicities. Notice patterns that affect groups or communities simultaneously. These may reflect collective psychological processes or shared archetypal activations. 5. Intentional synchronicity. Work. Some practitioners report that setting a conscious intention to receive guidance on a specific question can sometimes catalyze relevant synchronistic experiences, though this should be approached with humility rather than as an attempt to control outcomes. The deeper you go with this work, the more important discernment becomes. Always balance openness to meaningful patterns with critical thinking and psychological honesty. As we conclude our exploration of synchronicity, let's recap the essential insights we've covered. These experiences point to a deeper order of reality, where psyche and matter are not as separate as our conventional thinking assumes. Authentic synchronicities typically involve archetypal themes, emotional significance, and statistical improbability. By cultivating synchronistic awareness through practices like journaling, symbolic literacy, and attentive observation, we can become more receptive to these meaningful patterns. Discernment is crucial, distinguishing authentic synchronicity from projection, wishful thinking, or confirmation bias. Synchronistic experiences often cluster around major life transitions, relationship formations, creative breakthroughs, and periods of psychological transformation. The recognition of synchronicity invites us into a more enchanted relationship with reality, one where meaning permeates not just our subjective experience, but the objective world as well. This doesn't require abandoning rational thinking or scientific understanding, but rather complementing these with an appreciation for a causal, meaningful connections. In a world increasingly dominated by algorithmic thinking and mechanical causality, synchronicity reminds us that reality is more mysterious, more interconnected, and more alive with meaning than our conventional models suggest. I encourage you to remain open to the meaningful coincidences in your own life, not with naive credulity, but with what Jung called critical receptivity, a balanced stance that neither dismisses these experiences nor inflates their significance. The universe may indeed be speaking to you through the language of meaningful coincidence. Learning to listen to this subtle communication can provide guidance, insight, and a profound sense of connection to something larger than yourself. As Jung himself wrote, synchronicity reveals the meaningful connections between the subjective and objective world. By paying attention to these connections, we may discover that we are participating in a reality far richer and more meaningful than we had imagined. I'm deeply curious about your experiences with synchronicity. Have you encountered meaningful coincidences that seemed to transcend random chance? What did these experiences reveal to you, and how did they influence your life path? Share your synchronicity stories in the comments below. Your experience might resonate profoundly with other viewers who've had similar encounters, but perhaps lack the framework to understand them. If you know someone who's experienced strange coincidences they can't explain, or who's going through a major life transition where synchronistic guidance might be especially relevant, consider sharing this video with them. For more on Jungian psychology and personal growth, check out our videos on how to recognize the signs that you're on the right path, Jungian synchronicity, or the hidden connection between your dreams and your life purpose, Jungian dream analysis. Remember, the meaningful coincidences in your life aren't random. They're invitations to a deeper understanding of yourself and your place in a meaning-rich universe.